This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers.
You're always this stupid. It is you take lessons. Just calm down.
Oh, fuck you!
You can't handle the truth.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
In other words, be nice, asshole. Company went public. Now, there were 2 whales that were kind of interesting. We'll not go into a ton of detail about them, but their names were Dr. Ron and Dr. Couch, and they were part of the advisory board. They were 2 of the biggest prescribers, I believe, in Alabama. When these 2 ended up getting arrested, the street value of opioids shot through the roof in that area. Like, they could see the cost. Because just shutting this one doctor's office down, people in the area were like, fuck, I need the drugs.
Right? Yeah.
You know you're fucked up when you get shut down and a street drug becomes more expensive. Like, you impact an illegal market.
Right.
That's crazy. They did all kinds of shit for Couch and Ron. They picked up dry cleaning. They picked up relatives. Insys would pick up relatives from the airport and do all these personal favors for them just to keep these 2 happy. That's how much they were prescribing. One of them was addicted to it himself.
You don't get high on your own supply.
Right? Nope, he did not learn that lesson. They also, and this is what made them unique of the whales. Again, you guys should read the book for the details on the whales. Some of them I'm just like, y'all are... But these 2 were unique. They created a system where they could double dip. They created their own pharmacy. So not only did they get the cost of the visit and they get the bribe from Insys, but now they're the pharmacy that sells the drug. And they don't have to fight with other pharmacies like CVS, who usually don't have subsys on tap or who would push back on filling early. They were fine with filling early. In 1 month, Couch and Ron brought in over $600,000 in profit from subsys alone.
Why can't we be like wicked, awesome criminals?
I know. Well, these 2 went to jail. But
Well,
we
yeah.
need a Jessica break after that. That's a lot.
Okay.
Like, who the fuck are these guys?
$600,000 in 1 year.
1 month.
Or 1 month.
1 month.
Wow.
Okay.
This is a good one.
Oh, I like this. Okay.
Did you know that spider webs were used once as bandages? Can you imagine being injured and wrapped in spider
Who the
webs?
fuck use a goddamn spider web
What?
as a bandage? An
Who?
ogre? An elf?
Who thought?
Some witches? Who does that?
Who thought to do that?
In ancient Greece and Rome, doctors used spider webs to make bandages for their patients. Spider webs supposedly have natural antiseptic and antifungal properties which can help keep wounds clean and prevent infection. It's also said that spider webs are rich in vitamin K, which help promote clotting. So next time when we're out of Band-Aids, we could just go find a nice big old black widow nest and just ball it
Wrap
up
it up.
and wrap it on. Or when the zombie apocalypse comes, we don't ever need no bandages. We got motherfucking spider webs.
Right. So, and I thought I read a long
That
time
is
ago
fascinating.
that's how spiders get like the animals in there because it numbs them and they
Right.
can't move.
Right.
Yep.
So
When I was reading that, I was like, that totally makes sense
It
because
does.
they because
so-
that's how they
And the
capture
fact
their
that they
prey.
figured that out, I mean, obviously they didn't know the science behind it, but the fact that they figured it out that it did
Way back
something
then.
good, that it did something good way back then.
Right.
Speaking of the zombie apocalypse, this is TJ's new favorite joke. What's the best room to go to when your house is under attack by zombies? The living room. That's TJ's favorite joke to tell. He will tell everybody that joke. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, no spider
That
webs.
is wild.
webs, huh?
Okay. Spider webs.
We're just learning so much today.
We are. I love it. We're getting an education. All right. So in the meantime, while this is going on, the Four Horsemen are living it up. But there was a competitor. Now they were the big dog in the market, and now they had to worry about people coming after them instead of them being the underdog. And a new company came in called Galena Biopharma, and they created Abstral, which was a generic turf drug. And they had launched it before. It had already been approved. They were a smaller company, but they didn't have a lot of luck. But they decided to relaunch. And they were hiring more experienced sales reps at a higher base salary. So some Insys folks were actually leaving to go there. Plus, it was getting in early on a smaller company that you could maybe get stock in it. And now the stock's maybe someday going to go public. And now you're a millionaire overnight. So Insys started freaking out because not only were they losing some of their salespeople, but they started seeing that their doctors were writing prescriptions for Abstral. And they even put in an email. I believe it was Burlikoff. I thought we owned these folks.
You don't own anybody, sir. You can't own people.
Thank you. Now, they couldn't figure out why Ron and Couch, the pharmacy guys, were specifically writing it. They were like, wait a minute, we don't get it. They're not making any more money. Like, we don't understand. What they didn't know was that Ron and Couch were investors in Galena. So they could literally make the stock price of Galena go up by writing prescriptions for it.
Man, they just had their hands in a little bit of everything.
They did. And ooh, yeah, they got in a shit ton of trouble, believe me. Not as much as they should have. But so 30% of all the Abstral scripts in the United States over 18 months came from their office. 2 doctors came from their office.
That's a lot.
Now, there was some misinformation given to Insys that eventually created an issue. Insys got word that what was happening was that Galena was direct shipping the drug to the pharmacy. And there is a 3-step supply chain when it comes to these drugs. They go from the drug maker's shipper to the wholesale distributor and then to retail pharma. So like CVS's, etc. With opioid abuse on the rise, the amount of shipping that was being generated was setting off alarms all over the FDA, and they were putting holds on the shipments from the second step, from the middleman in it. So Insys was told that Galena was shipping directly to the pharmacy. They were skipping the middleman, the wholesale distributor, where shit was getting put on hold. That wasn't true, but they didn't know that. So Kapoor and Babich went down personally to Alabama just to meet with these 2 doctors. That's how much money they were making off these guys. The CEO and the director of the board went to meet with just these 2 doctors. Now, this is another point where, once again, all of them at different points had brains.
Right.
Burlikoff, the greasy-ass salesman, knew that what they wanted was direct ship to their pharmacy. And Burlikoff was like, no. That was a bridge too far for him. But he was cut out of this dinner. He wasn't allowed. And Couch and Ron pushed it, and they agreed. So what's interesting is this would have saved Insys about 8 to 9%, cutting out the middleman. But Couch and Ron demanded that 8 or 9% go into their pocket. They negotiated that. And Insys did it just to make... That's how much money they were making off of these 2 doctors, which is crazy to me. And these motherfuckers, between the pharmacy and the bribes and the Galena stuff, and I'm just like, wow, these 2 were ballsy.
Greed is a sin.
Greed is a sin. Now, at that point, more whistleblowers had come forward. This was getting worse and worse and worse. And a bunch more people came forward and had filed key tam suits under seal since Frycheck's case was dismissed. And they got a subpoena because the government was finally starting to pay attention. Like, oh, this is probably bad. And they had text messages, all kinds of shit. People were recording calls on their phones. But when they got the subpoena, Insys still didn't have an in-house counsel. They had no compliance department and they had no in-house counsel. Still.
They're just running by the seat of their pants. Just,
right.
Let's figure this out as we go.
So they brought in they had an outside law firm on retainer and they brought them in. And the first thing they said was shut down the speaker program and you need a compliance department. Well, Kapoor put in a compliance department, but every time they made a suggestion to be compliant, Kapoor thought it cut into sales, he strong-armed them and said no. So he brought in a compliance department for show.
Right.
It wasn't for anything.
Not to actually enforce anything.
Of course
it was
not.
just there
just to be pretty.
Of course not. But in all the meetings about the DOJ subpoena and all that stuff, the person who put the company at the most risk, who was Berlikov, for some reason, he was not included in any of these meetings. So he kept doing the shit he was doing. They weren't telling him, yo, shut it down. Like, he didn't understand what the big deal was because he wasn't being looped in. So it created this weird ecosystem where you just don't know what the fuck is happening. Yeah. It's bizarre. Now, Berlikov thought that Dr. Kapoor would just be able to write a check and get him out of trouble. Even if this produced anything, we've got our fuck up budget, right?
I don't think that's how he's going to handle that. I think he's going to be like, fuck you.
Now, Insys was actually more concerned at this point about staying in good graces with Couch and Ron than they were about this government investigation. But then an arrest happened of a doctor, of one of their doctors, that freaked them the fuck out. Guy's name was Gavin Auerbach. He was a doctor in Saginaw, Michigan. He was casual, short, slim, had wiry gray hair, never looked combed, often looked unshaved. He would drive to work in a Chevy. His patients defended the shit out of him. He helps us. And he had over 5,000 active patients and would see about 50 patients a day. He was a neurologist. He worked with people with migraines, neck pain, back pain, and other doctors in the area with the opioid abuse on the rise. Instead of taking on the risk of treating these patients, they would refer them to him. So basically, he was running a pill mill, basically. Right. But he was doing it in a way that his patients felt like he truly cared. Now, the feds started watching him. Number one, because of all the prescriptions. But number two, he was billing for a ton of diagnostic tests. Way more than average. And he was billing most of his patients were on Medicare and Medicaid. So they were looking into this diagnostic billing. A lot of doctors do this. They feel like it's a victimless crime. Nobody gets hurt. Okay, fine. So they started sending in undercover patients. And they found that when he was doing these diagnostic tests, the probes and needles that he was putting in people, they weren't even hooked up to machines. Oh, God. It was just a show. And then they could bill Medicare and Medicaid. And life was grand. He did this a lot.
Wow.
But one patient came in and he said he had lower back pain, and on a scale of 1 to 10, he was at about a 3. And that the Vicodin that he had prescribed him was working well, but he wanted to know if he could get some Oxy instead, thought it might maybe take the 3 down even a little bit more. Somebody comes in.
Can you give me something with a little kick to it? That's
pretty much is what he asked for. And at this appointment, Auerbach was like, how about Subsys? A guy that says that his pain level is at a 3 out of 10.
Right.
Who Vicodin is doing well for.
But just wants a little bit more.
And you offer him a drug for people that, what? This dude was an undercover. And this tipped them off and they freaked. They were like, what the
Wait, so
fuck?
he went to this appointment as an undercover? Mm-hmm. Okay, so
yeah.
He
He wasn't in pain at all. This was all just a setup to see what Auerbach would do.
Oh, man.
And Auerbach offered him Subsys.
He took the bait.
Yeah. He took the bait.
Greedy fucker.
Absolutely took the bait. And that amazed me. So the Department of Health and Human Services Office Inspector General, they started investigating his patients and going to see them. And they were horrified by what they were seeing. They were speaking to one woman who would eventually testify about how this destroyed her life. And they came in to talk to her, and she was so out of it and so just kind of glassy-eyed and just not present. Part of the interview was verifying that she was the person they were looking to speak to, so they asked to see her driver's license. And they were like, the woman on the driver's license was not the woman sitting in front of us.
Really?
It just a shell of a human being.
Oh.
They could not. And she had a little daughter that they were looking at, and they were freaked out. They were
sad.
Beyond freaked out. There was a woman that would eventually testify about Couch and Ron. She was a minister's wife. She didn't know that pain pills could be a problem. Eventually, she was put on Subsys. Completely ruined her life. Her husband would find her passed out at random places in the house. She was passing out at stoplights.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh.
Just completely destroyed her life. And then the last appointment she went to at Couch and Ron's office, the nurse who came in to talk to her was clearly high on the same thing and was babbling and incoherent and eventually passed out in the middle of her appointment, this nurse. And she was looking at her like, oh my God, I know this person. This person is me, and we're both in deep shit. And she said she just put her head back and started crying and praying. It was the only thing she could do because she realized, I am fucking screwed. These people who testified, it is really, really sad what happened to all these people. It's heartbreaking. And for people that didn't need to be on it at all. So they started investigating the patients. They couldn't figure out, though, why this drug, why sepsis. And that's when they learned, because they were like, there's other ways to scam the government that are less costly in time. You know, it sucks up so much time. Like, why this drug? And that's really when they learned about the speaker program. And on May 6, 2014, they arrested Auerbach. He was not shocked. He knew.
He knew it was coming.
He knew. And and his patients found out when it was announced to the public, oh, he's leading a double life. He's driving a Chevy to work. He's got a 2005, what did he call it? A 2005 Lotus Elise, which if you see this picture of this car, it is a badass looking ride. Yeah. Like a little sports car. It is 6,000 square foot lakefront house. Like he was living the high life off of this sepsis money. He owned rare coins, stamps, baseball cards, everything. But they didn't want him at this point. They wanted Insys. And Auerbach's arrest was public, and the fact that he was arrested for overprescribing drugs, and it was in the news. So because of all that, it shocked them when Auerbach called the feds and was like, hey, Insys leaders call me and they want to meet with me.
Like after he was arrested?
After he was arrested, after it was made public.
After they called and wanted to meet with him.
Yeah. And the feds were like, no, what?
You
would think that
ballsy.
Would be like, we're not speaking. We are distancing ourselves from this person completely.
Yeah.
But Berlikov wanted to meet with him. And the feds were like, we're putting a wire on you, Auerbach. Put a wire on him. He sucked as an informant. Berlikov picked up on it like that he was being recorded. And when he left, he realized this is when the scope of what was happening finally sunk in for Berlikov, to the point where he had to stop the car and get out and puke. First thing he did was call Babbage and Kapoor and say, I think he was recording me. Don't worry, I didn't say anything bad.
Wow.
This is a mob organization. This isn't a drug company. Why? This is wild to me that it comes off like a mafia movie.
Yeah.
I know it's being recorded, boss. Don't worry about it. I got you. I didn't say nothing. I didn't say nothing. So after this was made public, Insys, this is what's interesting about the stock. When these stories would come out about different doctors and physician's assistants and people over-prescribing this and it being connected to Insys, their stock would dip pretty significantly. Like after Auerbach was arrested, it dropped by 1/3 of its value. But it would go back. It was like it just faded from memory and it would just go right back up. And this happened quite a bit. So Napolitano was the only one to really see this is bad. And he got out, finally. And he wasn't charged because there was enough documentation of him fighting a lot of this. They eventually did give him immunity, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Napolitano leaves. Now, when Auerbach was arrested, it was interesting. Galena, the company that they were invested in, emailed him about Auerbach to make sure that he knew, or that Couch and Ron knew, that he was arrested because of Insys and not because of them.
Man.
There's so many criminals in this, criminal companies in this world. Don't worry. They arrested him for bribing, for Insys bribing him, not us. We're good. They haven't figured out we're doing it too yet. That's really what the email said when you read between the lines. I need a Jessica fun fact.
Oh, okay. I got one ready to go.
Woohoo.
All right. Did you know the inventor of Pringles is buried in a Pringles can?
Shut the fuck up.
A normal size one or that long one?
That might be a little personal, Tanya.
Is he cremated and put in it? Or was it a Pringle-sized can that was built?
Yes, no, he was cremated.
Okay.
All right, so.
See, my brain went to like they built a Pringles coffin.
They just put his ass in an old Pringles can. So.
Actually, you would think that if it was in your will that you are to be buried in a Pringles can and you're the inventor of Pringles, You would think that you would have like a prepared,
like a
designated
golden Pringle can with diamond encrusted.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know.
Like a blinged out rapper's necklace kind of Pringles can.
Yeah, right. You would think, right?
But
All right.
not the one that Jimmy had in his room under his bed for the last 3 weeks, and we're going to throw Grandpa in there.
There you go.
Right. So, in 1966, Frederick Bauer developed the ingenious idea for Procter & Gamble to uniformly stack chips inside a can instead of tossing them in the bag. He was so proud of his invention that he wanted to take it to the grave. Literally. He communicated his burial wishes to his family, and when he died at age 89, his children stopped at Walgreens on the way to the funeral home to buy his burial Pringles can.
What flavor did they get?
Oh, wait, they did have to make one decision. My siblings and I briefly debated what flavor to use. Bauer's eldest son, Larry, told Time, but I said, look, we need to use the original. Frederick Bauer, an American classic. Walgreens. Motherfucking Walgreens. If you knew you were going to die, be cremated, and want to be buried in a Pringles can, why wouldn't you make yourself a Pringles can?
I don't know. I don't want my final resting place to be purchasable at Walgreens.
I mean, at least it was Walgreens and not like
Come and
7-Eleven
go.
or fucking Walmart.
Dollar store.
The dollar store, right?
Like they were extra cheap. Didn't want to pay the $2.39. They just wanted to spend the
Give me the dollar can. yeah.
Can you
And at
imagine
least
the
it was
person who
actual
checked them
Pringles
out?
brand and not like the Great Value one.
Right?
Can you imagine?
Or the Lay's.
I'm done. I really would love to know if they told the clerk checking them out what it was for.
Yeah, we're going to dump these out. We're going to put all these Pringles in my sister's purse, and we're going to stick my dad
Hey,
here.
can you dump this out in a trash can behind there? Because it's for my grandpa. He's dead. We're going to put him in it. That is amazing.
A Pringles can.
That is
Now, I
amazing.
take that over being in a coral reef, I think.
Really?
No. That's ridiculous. I object. The court objects. So Couch and Ron were arrested as part of their Galena work.
Good.
It turns out the company had been involved in a pump and dump scheme.
Pump and dump.
But have you ever heard of a pump and dump scheme?
The only thing I know about pump and dump is breastfeeding.
No.
Like, that's what they tell you to do after you've
Right.
been drinking, to pump
Yeah.
and dump.
No.
Or it could be like a one-night stand. Of
Right.
Pump and dump.
That's what I think of when you say
No,
pump and
no.
dump. That's what I think of.
No. A pump and dump is when
I'm going to pump and dump this dude.
a pump and dump is when you pump up the stock price
Okay.
and then you
You
sell
sell.
it. You
Yeah.
you pump up the stock and then you dump it. And they were bribing people to write bullish articles about the stock and the company and encouraging the price to go up, and then they would sell it. And it was a bribe. It was a scam.
It was a pump and dump.
Pretty much.
All right.
So Auerbach tipped them off, and then Couch and Ron were arrested. Witnesses were getting subpoenas from all over the country to come testify before the grand jury. Word was leaking back to Insys about it. People were paranoid. People started actually shorting the stock, which is always a bad sign. An independent journalist named Roddy Boyd was tipped off to the story, and the New York Times had already exposed some of this crap, but Roddy Boyd really went after them. He exposed the whole Sunrise Lee thing, the stripper, and all that. He was like, yeah, this is one of their top people. Yeah, I guess she's giving lap dances to
Fentanyl Fanny over there.
Fentanyl Fanny. It's going to be the name of the third episode.
Oh,
Fentanyl
boy.
Fanny.
Fentanyl Fanny and her wild shenanigans.
But here's what really freaked him out. There was a nurse named with the last name Alfonso from Connecticut who pled guilty for anti-kickbacks. She was given a bribe of like $83,000 for sham speaking events. And she was prosecuted for it, and she pled guilty. And what was flipping them out was with Ron and Couch, they could distance themselves a little bit, saying, well, they chose to write the prescription. What freaked them out was the person who bribed them, or bribed this nurse, wasn't some rogue sales agent they could just fire and say, well, we don't know. They went off the rails. And the reason why is because her sales agent who bribed her was the CEO's wife, Mike Babbage. So you can't quite go out there and be like, we didn't know. She's crazy.
Why doesn't anybody ever want to bribe me for something? I won't even tell anybody.
I promise, mister, I won't tell.
I won't tell anyone. Just bribe me.
Please, sir, can I have some more? Well, what could we be bribed for? I don't know.
Nothing, because I know nothing. I'm
I got
no
anything.
skin in this game.
We need to find some skin, damn it.
So I can get in the game.
So basically, once again, read the book. His wife did all kinds of shady shit, and she would eventually
She was no bunny.
No. She would eventually plead guilty. She left in 2014 because she was engaged to Babbage, and she later said during her testimony that she resigned because she knew the speaker program was wrong. And, quote, "It wasn't something I was raised to do." And they were like, "So you married the CEO?"
Knowing what kind of shit he was doing?
Okay. He would claim that he had no idea that she did this until the moment his wife pled guilty.
So he didn't talk about nothing?
Apparently.
It just never, huh?
Apparently this was a marriage of, we don't even know each other. I don't know.
Like two ships passing in the night.
I don't know. But at that point, I mean, Kapoor started cutting Babbage out. That coldness thing started setting in. He took Babbage out to dinner and flat out told him, "There's always got to be a fall guy. And you're the fall guy." And fired him. Kapoor knew, man. This motherfucker knew. Oh, my God. So the stock finally began to fall. Berlikov actually stayed at the company for a little bit longer. He was freaked out. The compliance department wanted him fired. They ended up giving him a bigger title and more responsibility. I know. So much fun. He ended up quitting because they gave him a bigger title and more responsibility with the promise to pay him more later, and then
oh, okay.
They didn't actually
that
do
was
it.
too much.
That was a line too far.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, now you've crossed the line, sir. We have morals around here.
Berlikov was like, "You know what?
My mom said if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything." I'm not falling for the okie dokie, pal. Good day, sir.
Making promises you don't keep is a line that I will not
You're not going
to
to give
cross.
me more money? I just cannot deal with it.
Fuck off. They kept him on for a while, though. They kept paying him for months and giving him benefits. They later sent him a letter saying that we're going to stop that because of a material breach is the reason. Berlikov, this is where Berlikov is. This comes back to the Enron thing. Berlikov was being told to get a criminal attorney. Of course, he wasn't listening to the criminal attorney because he's a salesman, and salesmen on this level are those people that think they can literally talk their way out of anything, right? And it reminds me of when we did the Enron story. Jeff Skilling was the only person. Everybody else who got subpoenaed before Congress either didn't show up or pled the fifth or whatever. Jeff Skilling truly believed that he could go to Congress and say, "When I left, everything was doing great. I left for personal reasons. So we're good, right?
Right.
I can leave?" He really thought he could point to Sharon Watkins and say, "She's crazy. She don't know what she's talking about." I'll put our Enron playlist down below, by the way. But he really believed he could do that. And the hubris of that. Berlikov had that hubris. He decided he couldn't handle the waiting. And he said, "I'm going to go talk to the feds freely." And his criminal attorney was like, "Fuck and no." But he felt he could talk his way out of it. So he fired his criminal defense attorney, called up the feds and said, "I want to meet." And they were stunned. Without an attorney present? Are you sure? Like, he's the guy they have the most shit on.
Right.
He's the guy that did the most shit. And he should know that.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, let's meet. And he really thought he could talk his way out of it. So he went and met with him. He sat down and he, for 5 hours, gave a whole bunch of bullshit. And the way that they broke it down in the book was the prosecutor, his name is Yeager. Berlikov had charm. Yeager had evidence. Yeager presented him with all kinds of shit. Emails, okay, you want to explain this? And Berlikov left and was just stunned that he didn't talk his way out of it. He couldn't really believe it. He was like, "Really? Oh my God. You mean I couldn't?" Like, the hubris of that is what kills me. And the government is the one, after 5 hours, that shut the meeting down. They've got one of their biggest targets in the room talking freely. And they were like, this is bullshit. You're fucking lying. You're lying to us. We know you're lying to us. Just leave. Just go. And he left and called his wife and said, it's fucking over. He blew it and he knew it. 7 months later, agents from 10 agencies fanned out all over the country and arrested Babich and a whole bunch of other people. Everybody thought that Kapoor would walk because Kapoor didn't kind of like Trump. Like Kapoor thought he doesn't use email. There's not anything directly tying to him. And he wasn't arrested that day. So people really thought he was gonna go. But 10 months later, they showed up at his mansion, were banging on the door. Nobody came to the door. They went in and they found him. He had on like a pair of headphones and didn't hear them banging. He was in workout clothes.
Oh.
And he was on the stairs and there's like an FBI agent with the whole thing and the gun and the whole nine. And his first response was literally, I thought this went away. Like, in other words, you arrested, in other words, you arrested my minions, right? And you know I'm going to write a check, so why are you arresting me?
Right.
Really was his attitude.
It's really cocky.
It is. But history told them that this is what you did. Like I said, they have fuck-up budgets.
Right.
Oh my God, I already dealt with it.
Exactly. So they were actually charged with RICO conspiracy.
Oh.
Now, the interesting thing about RICO is it's about agreeing to the conspiracy. It's not about the crime actually committed. Just agreeing to the conspiracy is enough. And the conspiracy between all these people was like, well, fuck. Okay, pretty easy to prove. Now, they ended up cutting deals. They gave Napolitano, they never charged Napolitano, but they gave him immunity because he had this habit of wanting to spin how, he was responsible for their greatness, but not responsible for any of the shit that got him there. Yeah. And they knew he would plead the fifth if pushed. So they gave him immunity. Babich and Berlikov eventually flipped and agreed to testify against Kapoor. A lot of that was very personal. They felt very betrayed by Kapoor, which you get what you pay for, I guess.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dude, they all testified at the trial, but Berlikov was the show. They brought Berlikov in last because they wanted to present all the evidence and make sure it wasn't tied to how skeezy you felt about Berlikov. They wanted him to basically be him and Babich. They wanted them to be the voice in the room to say this, because they didn't have any emails or text messages or anything. So they needed somebody who was in the room to be able to say, this is what happened. So they did. Berlikov on the stand was a fucking nightmare. He would not stick to the script. He would go off on these wild tangents. At a certain point, because Sunrise Lee was charged, the stripper. She was on trial.
Oh, of course they got the stripper.
Of course they got the stripper. And she felt like, okay, I had this chance encounter at a strip club. This guy hired me, and now he's testifying against me. He used me as the pawn to get it.
It works.
Pretty much.
Shit always runs downhill.
And he had the balls to say, when they asked him on the stand if he still had feelings for her, he had the balls to say yes. And she literally looked disgusted. Her mother was in the courtroom and she just like hissed at him. Like, okay. He showed a total his best friend, the guy that he brought in at the beginning to bring in the whale, he was charged. He had the balls on the stand to be like, he's the best friend I have. He's my best friend in the world. And it was like a complete lack of self-awareness that you're testifying against him to send him to prison. You know that, right? Okay, just...
How come you ain't never tried to send me to prison, Tanya?
You don't actually love me.
We can work on it.
We can work on it.
I can work on it. I'll make some calls later on tonight. Okay? I've just been a little busy lately. I need a bribe.
I need a bribe.
Trying to pull off a fucking caper here.
Maybe we'll extort Mike.
Yes. Yeah,
since he thinks it's happening already.
Yeah. I'm just going to use all my friends' husbands and extort all of them.
Send us a naughty picture of him and we'll send it to him under like a fake email and be like...
Or just a picture and we can do the rest.
Exactly. You don't have... You know what? I'm going to stop talking. We don't have to share the details with you. Plausible deniability.
We'll use Photoshop and have him dress up in an olive oil outfit. Spanking Popeye with a wooden spoon.
Doing something inappropriate with a dog or a horse or something.
Gerbil climbing out of his butt. I don't know.
If you don't want this all over the internet.
Oh, my face.
I'll ruin you, Michael. I'll ruin you.
You shall rue the day that you didn't agree to let Jessica buy pants.
You think Jessica extorted you?
You ain't seen shit.
Right.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, my face.
Oh my God, Michael has no idea what's coming. Oh God. Okay. So during Burlakoff's testimony, they produced a video. Now, if you remember during the Enron thing, when they did the mark-to-market accounting, they did a spoof video of it that we were like, that's not really a spoof. That's what it is. And
right,
it's
yeah,
bad.
It's like an actual, yeah.
They produced, there was a rap video that was produced.
Like a song?
Yes.
You know,
rap?
it's always never a good idea for a bunch of old white men to make a rap video.
Yep. They took an A$AP Rocky song and they changed the lyrics and they made this video to play at a national sales conference. And they changed the lyrics to match the business. And the lyrics were, now to give a little bit of context, there's a word that they used a lot in the book. It's called titration. And titration is, in medical terms, is the act of you start them on a drug and then you increase the dosage slowly until it achieves the desired effect or side effects start, right? And they push the higher dose a lot. So in the rap video, they changed the lyrics to say, I love titration. That's not a problem. I got new patients and I got a lot of them. And they had a person dressed up in like a mascot outfit that looked like one of their sepsis spray bottles that was dancing around. These are not people that are giving a shit about who they're giving this drug to, this dangerous drug. And the person at the end of the video in the mascot costume took off the mask and it was Burlakoff. You did not give a shit what you did to people at all.
You deserve to go to hell. You just really deserve to go straight to hell. Mm-hmm. What a turd.
Yep. So Dr. Couch, they were all found guilty. Thank God. Dr. Couch and Dr. Ron, the two super greedy fuckers, they got the most. They were sent to prison for 21 and 20 years.
Good.
For the number of people they probably killed, yes. Good job. Their sales rep for Insys was sentenced to 6 months home confinement and probation. Auerbach, for his cooperation, was given 32 months and got a further reduction for cooperation. He served 16 months. Babbitt's wife, she got 6 month home confinement and probation for the bribe. Guerreri, who was the chick who did the call center stuff, she got 3 years supervised release. They all did get major financial penalties, and they'll probably never pay them back. Babbage got to keep a majority. He was cashing out his stock hardcore. I think they said he walked away with like $40 million. He only had to give like 3.5 of it back.
Oh,
that's like
nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. Insys stayed open through 2019. Insys was still operational. When they were convicted, they eventually agreed to a, $225 million settlement, and a few days later declared bankruptcy. The only thing the patients could get back was basically their copays. The people who will be paid first are the government and insurance companies that they defrauded. Insys, eventually during its bankruptcy, sold the rights to Subsys, and Subsys is still marketed by another company.
So it's still available, this drug?
Yep.
So if...
I mean, are they still making money?
So I don't understand. That's all I have to say. I don't understand. No. Even though it's found to be incredibly harmful to people.
Yeah. Still out there.
But they make money off of it. If it's a moneymaker, they're never going to get rid of it.
Nope.
Same thing with cancer.
Of
They'll
not.
never have a vaccine. They'll never have a cure.
Yeah.
They'll never have...
Because the
same
money's
thing
in the
with-
medicine.
Right. The same thing with Alzheimer's. The same thing with anything that is going to kill you, anything that's debilitating, anything that takes your life from you. They're never going to find a cure for it because they make so much fucking money off of it.
Yep.
Like I said, if this guy was really concerned about his bunny being in so much pain and not want anybody else to go through it, he would have taken all that money and put it towards fucking research and come up with a team and done stuff to help make, to help get rid of cancer, or to at least figure out some sort of other like testing you can do. Because right now all we have is genetic testing.
Right.
So that's just fucking greed on his part. That's
Absolutely.
Just greed.
It is greed. Burroughs, the judge, I find her suspicious as fuck. Despite the conviction and her, quote, respect for the jury, she vacated part of the conviction.
Probably owns stock in the fucking company.
Oh, shit. Allegedly.
Okay.
She also pushed the government to streamline the charges and repeatedly questioned if the government was overreaching. I don't know what her deal was. She actually had the balls when she vacated the part of the conviction to say that she didn't think the government had proven that Insys employees had specifically intended for the drug to be given to people for not legitimate medical purposes.
Oh, but she'd be the first one to lock up a crackhead for breaking in someone's car.
Only that they didn't care if it was. I don't understand what the fucking difference is, but okay. Now, an appeals court would smack her down and be like, no, they would actually reinstate that conviction, that part of the conviction. So I don't understand what her issue is. During their sentencing, she had the balls. This kills me. She downplayed the wrongdoing, saying it was, quote, pretty garden variety insurance fraud.
Garden variety. Just a garden variety type,
Sunrise Lee was sentenced to 1 year and a day. Babbage got 30 months, so basically 2.5 years. His lawyer argued during the sentencing, which he was the CEO. He argued during the sentencing that Babbage has no regulatory training and had no idea what he was doing. So why are you in charge?
Right. Have a little accountability. Be like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm just gonna, so I still get like all these emails from like Monster and Indeed and stuff, and it's usually the jobs that they're sending me. Do we think this would be a great fit, like doctor or Air Force?
I know, you're like, what the fuck?
RN, just shit like that with a bachelor's and, why did you send me this shit? I have none of this. My resume doesn't say shit about any of this, but okay.
But somehow this asshole ended up as the
so
CEO.
I'm just going to start applying for those jobs. Fuck it. All they can say is no. I mean, they fuck around and make me a nurse somewhere, then hey, there we go.
Burlikoff.
$42 an hour.
There you go. Burlikoff, the skeeziest of them all, got 26 months. 2 years and 2 months, basically. And for Kapoor, the judge recognized his good deeds and his, quote, genius. And he got 66 months, so 5.5 years. The government asked for 15. Yeah, for donating to charity.
It was for Bunny.
It was for Bunny.
It's all for the bunny. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking... I swear to God.
So while they did go to jail, it is one of those things that I feel like the industry has just learned from. They've learned how to hide it better. It's just like the drop-down menus rather than the hand typing out freehand.
Right.
They talk about it in the book as what was hovering right beneath the surface of the trial is, but everybody does it. Right. This is stuff everybody is doing. And they have a fuck-up budget to cover it.
And that's why drug prices are the way that they are. And that's why,
So I think it definitely opened my eyes. There are provisions in the Affordable Care Act that some of this information of who is getting some of this money and who's prescribing, et cetera, is public information. I went and looked up my doctor to see like, hey, is he on this? Thank God he's not. Thank you. I feel like in my pain management journey, I've gotten very lucky with the doctors that I've had. They've kept me on the same dose. I have a pain contract that I am religious with. My doctor, the one who put me on it, is retired now. But every doctor that I've had since, when they see that and they see who put me on it, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, what? They're like, she didn't put anybody on anything. It feels like they're like, you must be one of those people that needs it. And I've always been on the same dose. It's regulated, all that stuff. And I feel like in seeing some of these cases, I feel like I got really lucky in that because it could have gone badly.
Right.
Like really, if you had offered me some of this shit, I don't know, when I had my accident in 2007, I don't know if I would have thought too much about it, even at the time, like to question it. I don't know. But I do feel like, especially reading some of these stories about these people that got divorced and lost their kids and their jobs and everything else, like this ruined lives. And I'm glad that somebody was held accountable. This needs to happen more. I don't think they were held as accountable as they should have been.
Right. But
this needs to happen more. And it can't just be, we've got a fuck up budget.
Right.
And moving on.
No, there has to actually be accountability
Mm-hmm.
for these people who knowingly are price gouging
Send them to jail.
and pushing these drugs through the different doctors and everything else. Because if not, it's just going to keep happening, and they're just going to keep
doing
I'm
it.
telling you. So we used to joke because, like, you know, my dad was in the military. They would give everybody codeine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, codeine was passed out like fucking candy in the 80s.
Yeah.
And you broke your toe? Here's some codeine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they even had like this cough syrup that was codeine. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know, just I think, I don't know. Look how many of these guys that came back at that point that were coming back from like Vietnam and stuff. You know, maybe 10, 15 years before that probably got hooked on like codeine and crack and whatever
All kinds
else
of other
came their
shit.
way. You know. And I think it all leads, like, that kind of stuff leads one thing to another to another.
People not caring about, like, that rap video. That is a group of people that have lost sight of what this drug was supposed to be used for.
Right.
So I think we should close out on one more fun Jessica fact if she's got
okay.
one.
Now I want some Pringles, though.
I know, right? I'm gonna taste like ash, maybe. I don't know. It's gonna freak me out.
On my way home so that I can get my.
I'm gonna
face
send
wash,
George out for Pringles.
and I might buy some Pringles when I go there.
There we go. All right, one more fun
All right,
fact.
Our last fun fact. Did you know a human can swim through a blue whale's veins? Did you know?
Really?
The blue whale is the largest living creature. It's even larger than most dinosaurs. The biggest blue whales can be over 100 feet in length and weigh more than 100 tons. Their hearts alone can weigh 1,300 pounds and are the size of a small car. Unsurprisingly, blue whales have enormous arteries which pump blood through their massive hearts and into their vital organs. These arteries are so big that a fully grown human could swim through them.
Like on the Magic School Bus. What was her name? Miss Frizzle.
Miss Frizzle. TJ actually just started watching the Magic School
Yeah.
Bus. He's
The kids
fascinated
used to
by
love
it.
that.
Oh,
We'd
yeah.
watch it every
I
morning
used to love it.
I loved it, yeah.
Before, like in the mornings during the week, whenever we'd be getting ready for work in school, the kids would watch.
Because it's on Netflix now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we didn't have cable, so it was on PBS.
There you go.
Right.
You know, they would always watch that in the morning.
I like that fun fact. All
Yeah.
right. So thank you guys for listening and going on this journey with us. We appreciate it. I think it was exhausting for all of us. All right. So thank you for listening. If you have other deep dive topics, especially if there's an audiobook, send them my way. Thank you, like Buddha for Buddha, for getting us on this.
Buddha.
Oh, God. And everybody should read the book, Evan Hughes. It's called The Hard Sell. Check it out. I know it's on Audible. So, and I'll post the links to some of the articles I found about this below. So until next time, I'm Lara Mack.
I'm Tanya Edwards.
I'm Jessica James.
Love your faces.
Smooches.
Keep it sane.
Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcasting platform. And follow us on our Facebook page by searching Q as in Cucumber. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram by searching QAIC_Lara, LARA, and QAIC_Tanya, TANYA. Don't forget to check out our other show, hosted by me and Jessica James, called The Parent Memoirs. And we want to hear from you. Share your stories by emailing us at qasincucumber@yahoo.com, and you might just hear your stories on a future episode. Love your faces.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.